Hello and welcome to Cooking with Launchlet. Today I'm going to show you how I take words from Google Translate, run a simple command, and create flashcards. Like this. What's going on here is I've typed in my words into Google Translate, which gives me a translation, and it also gives me this pronunciation text, which you may not need if you're using a language that has the same script, which maybe you could read or sort of guess what it sounds like without any help. But it's super helpful to have these pronunciation hints when you have a different language, when you have a language in a different script, such as Arabic, or in my case, Thai. And so what I do is I copy the English words, the translated words, and also the pronunciation text in one command, put all of it together in a format that is used by commit to import flashcards into the app so that I can read and practice them later, such as like this word here.
เมืองตลาด
So the way I go about this is actually through a recipe in Launchlet. And I have this recipe here as I've written it, which is kind of a bit jumbly, and I'm going to rewrite it a bit to show you a bit more clearly what's going on. So to start, I'm going to create a new recipe, and we're going to call it Flashcards from Translations. You can call it whatever you want. And instead of writing this, I'm actually just going to paste the code that I've already written to save time. And I'm not going to super explain everything in detail because it's a bit complex, but also it may change as the interface for Google Translate changes. So I'm more going to talk about what is going on at a higher level. And you can also just play with it in your browser, or try to write it yourself if you really feel like, or also just copy my code and use it. So here we have a variable called source, which takes the source text, in our case it's the English words, and it splits them into lines. So essentially we're going to have a line for each of these words here. And then we have pronounce, which is going to take the text for this pronunciation. Notice I didn't even have to type in show more because it just copies all of it, but it's going to take each of these and separate it by lines. And then you have translations, which is going to take all of these items here, the translated text, and separate them by lines. Once we have all three of them, we have cards, text, and this does the complicated work of going through each line in each of those lists and taking the corresponding thing from each column and separating them by semicolons and putting them in spaces and removing the hyphens, etc., etc., just massaging the data into a format that commit needs. And then it's ready to be copied to the clipboard as with the last command. The final thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that this recipe should only appear on Google Translate, because this kind of functionality is not going to be applicable to other websites, and I don't want it to show up in the list everywhere. So I just say in the field, in the URL filter, I say translate.google.com. So that means when I go back here and run the launcher, I should be able to see flashcards from translations, which is the one I just made now, and then I hit enter, or I click on it, and then I can simply go into the commit app, click the launcher button, which is commit's own launcher, separate from the launcher that I use for my recipes, and I can type import cards from text, and then here I just paste the text that was copied. And now I have 13 new flashcards, and it may have seemed like a lot of work to go through this once, but if you do this for 10 to 15 words, 10 to 15 new things every day, it actually quite adds up over a long period of time. So it's a great way to save time, and it's useful to have a single resource such as Google Translate, which doesn't have like maybe an API or something that's easy to access. You can very quickly kind of get the information you need and put it into a place where you can reuse it for your own purposes. So I hope that was helpful, and see you next time. One last thing, if you want this recipe in your Launchlet, check the link below, because I'll post the code to everything that I've done today so that you can get started really easily and maybe experiment on your own. Let me know what you think.